I remember my babysitter ended up coming into my room and said to me, Baba, my little sister thinks you're cute. I was wondering, can she hang out with you for a bit in your room? Wait, what? Why does your sister want to hang out with me? And then at that moment, my babysitter walked out of my room and her sister came in, and the first thing her sister did was come and try to kiss me. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another insane but embarrassing story. So today's story all takes place back in the year when I was in grade 9. In my grade 9 year, I was in high school or just starting high school, and honestly, I really had no idea what I was doing. To be honest, I had a really bad stutter, I was really bad at schoolwork, and the only things I cared about was playing video games, and I guess occasionally being a helpless romantic. But since I wasn't doing so good at school, I remember one time when I was coming home from school, I ended up getting a text message from my mom. My mom ended up texting me, Bubba, when you get home, we need to talk. And at that moment, I knew I was in serious trouble. Because every time she would text me the words, we need to talk, it definitely wasn't about talking the next latest video game that they were gonna buy me. So me, when I got home, I remember I walked straight into my room and sat there, kind of worried to see my parents. But then my mom ended up walking into my room, sat down beside me on my bed and said, Bubba, I got this email. And she ended up opening her email and she saw that I was failing math class. When she saw I was failing math, she ended up looking at me and said, Bubba, do you want to explain this? Why are you failing? Oh, well, the teacher's a jerk, mom. And like, honestly, like, I don't understand her. Bubba, that's no excuse. You should ask her questions. Do better. And at that moment, I knew that I was going to be in trouble. I remember a couple days go by and I tried to get my math grades up, but honestly, I just wasn't doing good at all. And I remember when the weekend finally came around, it was a Friday. And when I was coming home from school, my mom texted me the same thing again, where she said, Bubba, we need to talk. Get home now. So I remember when I got home, I instantly just walked up to her and said, Mom, listen, I'm trying to get my math grades up. Like, it's getting really hard for me to do. And like, I just don't understand. Bubba, that's not what I need to talk to you about. I'm going with your father on a little trip and we're going to some work convention. You have to stay here and we're going to be hiring a babysitter to make sure you finish your schoolwork. At that moment, I got so upset because I don't like babysitters. You guys know how many babysitters I've had over the years. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I hate every single one of them, other than the hot ones. But going on though, I remember I kept begging my mom over and over to not bring a babysitter, but she insisted and she said that I left her with no choice. To the point where I remember she ended up going on the internet and hiring a babysitter, and me, I ended up going in my room just all upset and everything. I remember later on that Friday, as I was sitting on my Xbox playing video games, out of nowhere I ended up hearing the door knock. I wanted to see who it was, so I ended up opening up my window and I looked around. I saw it was a cute pink car that I surprisingly recognized, but I wasn't sure from what. But then later on, I remember I ended up going downstairs and my mom ended up opening the door and I saw there was a really nice, hot, attractive babysitter, but then she also brought someone else. And this one person she brought, I actually recognized because she went to my school with me and she was actually in my theater class. At this moment, I was super confused, so I walked up to both of them and said, Hi, I'm the guy you're babysitting. Also, what are you doing here? Oh, Bubba, wait, you need a babysitter? Yeah, but what are you doing here? Like, you're literally the same age as me. Well, yeah, I know, but I ended up getting stuck with my older sister for the weekend, so I guess we're gonna be here with you babysitting you. I remember her older sister ends up looking down at her little sister and says, yeah, also on top of that, I'm babysitting you, so I wouldn't talk too much. At that moment, they both came in and my mom ended up explaining the rules of the house to the babysitter. As for me and her little sister, well, to be honest, we didn't really like know each other that well. All we knew is that we went to the same class, so me and her, we didn't talk too much. But when my parents finally ended up leaving, I remember I ended up going upstairs to my room and just hopped on Xbox and started playing video games. But then the babysitter ended up coming into my room and saying, Bubba, why are you playing video games right now? Your mom said you had math homework. Oh, yeah, I just have a little bit of stuff to do. I'm gonna do it though. And that's when her little sister came in and said, Bubba, aren't you like super behind and failing the class? At that moment, I ended up rolling my eyes back and I was super annoyed because I did not need both of them to tell me what to do. Like, I get it, I was failing math, but come on, bro. Like, really? You had to out me like that in front of your own sister? At that moment, I got super annoyed and I just ended up working and just pretending that nothing ever happened. But in the middle of doing my math homework, I ended up hearing a loud argument happening downstairs. So what I did was I went down there and I ended up saying, hey, like, what's going on here? Why are you guys arguing? And that's when the babysitter's sister ended up looking at me saying, Bubba, my sister wants to leave and quickly go see her boyfriend, but I told her she's not allowed since she's babysitting you. So can you tell her not to leave? At that moment, I remember I looked at both of them and I honestly didn't want to get in any more trouble. So I ended up telling her, honestly, you're not allowed to leave. She's right. But like, I'm gonna be honest, if my parents find out, I just want to let you know it's not gonna be my fault. At that moment, the babysitter ends up looking at me saying, Bubba, listen, okay, it's just gonna be for a quick minute. Just don't say anything. That's all you gotta do. Can you make sure that happens? Honestly, I'm not promising you anything. And at that moment, I ended up going upstairs. And as I was going upstairs, I realized that the babysitter's little sister was staring at me, but kind of in lust. If you guys don't know what lust means, basically she looked at me as if she liked me. I don't really know why, but I just went upstairs, went back to playing video games. And honestly, I didn't want to think think about them at all. But then this is where the story gets insane, because I remember as I was just sitting down playing video games, I want to say like 2 hours went by and I heard a loud bang. And when I heard a loud bang out of nowhere, I ended up running downstairs and said, wait, what's going on this time? What'd you guys do? And at that moment, I realized that they were just fighting and rolling around the floor, pulling each other's hair, and they were having a massive fight, to the point where I looked at both of them and said, okay, that's it. No, stop right now. I ended up pulling off my babysitter off her little sister, and while one thing led to another, her little sister ended up standing behind me and basically was using me as like a human shield. At that moment, the babysitter knew that she wasn't allowed to touch me at all, so she ended up saying, Baba, move aside so I can deal with my little sister. Yeah, no, I think I'm good. And honestly, if you end up touching her one more time, I'm gonna call my parents. At that moment, my babysitter's eyes went wide open, and she got super annoyed to the point where she went to a different room. As for her little sister, well, she ended up looking at me and thanking me, and it got to the point where she gave me a really tight hug. I really did not know what to do, but I ended up going back upstairs, and I did the same thing, and actually ended up finishing my math homework. But then afterwards, I want to say like 20 minutes later, things were way too quiet in the house. After having an argument like that, you would expect to be more arguments happening back to back. But nope, it was pure silence, and then afterwards, out of nowhere, like an hour later, my babysitter walked into my room. When she walked into my room, she ended up having this like look on her face, like she was really nervous about what she was gonna say. And she says, hey, Baba, I have a question. Yeah, what's going on? Well, like, do you have a girlfriend? No, why? Okay, well, my sister has like a crush on you, so like, is it cool if like she chills in here with you for a bit? I mean, I don't really know. Like, this is kind of like my private area. And at that moment, right when I say that, right away, her little sister ends up jumping into the room, and she jumps on top of me and starts making out with me. And my babysitter was just standing there watching the whole thing go down. Like, this was so sus to the point where I got so annoyed and said, wait, what are you doing? At that moment, my babysitter ended up looking at me, and I looked at her, and she ended up just walking out of the room and closing the door. And me and her little sister, we ended up making out, and she tried to do the devil's tango with me. At that moment, I knew that I didn't want to get in trouble, so I ended up actually pushing her off, and I actually ran out of my house and ended up calling my mom. I called my mom saying that these babysitters were way too weird and that I could not be in the same house as them. And while one thing led to another, they ended up coming back from the trip early, and they promised me that they would never hire them again. Honestly, I will say this, don't get me wrong, her little sister was cool and all, but seeing her at school after that whole situation was never the same. But hey, would you guys do the devil's tango with the babysitter's sister? Because if you guys would, then fall for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.